Hi, my name's Stephen Minix. Welcome to one of my first video blogs. We're going to be talking about politics today, and specifically the general election that everyone wants to keep talking about, 2016, 2016, especially with the situation going on with Chris Christie right now. I've been having some debates with some of my friends on Facebook, my Tea Party friends, my Libertarian friends, who espouse to the notion that people don't win they don't win general elections because they're not conservative enough. But I mean, anybody who has a finger on the pulse of the politics of this country knows that in general elections, conservatism is a liability. And it's not easy to hear for these people, but unfortunately for them, that's just the way it is. When I mean, let's go down the reasons. We're going to go down the list of issues one by one, the main ones that prevent Republicans from winning general elections, and basically are even turning the Republican Party right now into a party that's very strong regionally, but when it comes to national referendums, they can't win because they can't seem to alter their platform to meet the desires of the electorate when it comes to key issues. I'd say the two big ones are women and Latinos and immigration. Let's start with women. I mean, when you're the party of legitimate rape and you know, when you're the party that in some states has literally managed to shut down abortion for almost their entire state in a couple of states and continues to try to do so, when you're a party that's against birth control and basic, women's health care needs, this hurts you, and you lose women votes. Not only do you lose votes to women, but it prevents Republican women from coming out to vote because they don't want to vote. They don't want to vote when their party is against their interests, when their party is against equal pay for equal work, and all of these important things that are not just important for liberal women, but they're important for all women. And again, this comes back to the Republican Party not being able to free itself from the ideologies of the 1950s and understanding that a lot of the social issues that may have been popular for them in the 1980s when the moral majority was running rampant and they were getting a lot of political points off of these things, these issues are no longer profitable to any party that wants to win general elections. Uh, you know, Basically, when it comes to immigration reform and Latino voters, um, this is another big one for Republicans. They can't win general elections unless they do something to increase the margins from Latinos. Without that, there's no chance. The Latinos gave Barack Obama the election, Latinos and women, but mainly Latinos, two times in a row. And Republicans continue to lose Latinos because they just cannot seem to get their party's platform altered in a way that will allow them to win Latinos. And it's not hard to do. You just have to change what it is you want to do about immigration. And they're very stubborn. And maybe these ideological beliefs are very close to the heart of republicanism and conservatism as a whole, and they're just not willing to let go of them. But if that's the case, more power to them. But they're going to continue to lose elections, and out of being honorable and sticking to their guns on these things, maybe you can commend them on that. But at the end of the day, it's going to lead to the death of that party and conservatism as a whole. When you run a candidate like Mitt Romney, who literally uses the term self-deportation during the primaries and repeats it in the general election, you're not going to win a general election. It's impossible. So, when you have when you have a Republican Party, that thinks that they can win a general election because they're going to do this, that, or the other thing, I'm here to kind of explain why that's not true. Let's go down the list some of the guys or gals that the Republican Party would try to run in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, who we all know is going to run. And that's who they're going to be fighting against. So let's talk about some of these candidates. Rand Paul is a big possibility, and I'd almost guarantee you he will run in the primaries. And here's another example of someone who just cannot win a general election. People in the Republican Party love him, and the base loves him, but the base is not representative of where the general public is all over the country. Until the Republican Party realizes that their base is not in line with the ideologies of the general electorate, they're never going to win a general election. So when they run someone like Ron Paul, or let's say if they if they if they let Rick Santorum win a primary, for instance, I mean, these are the kind of people we're talking about. And I know Rick Santorum's a little different from Rand Paul. He's more a religious kind of guy, but on either way, whether it's religious extremism or libertarianism extremism, both sides of those spectrums just do not work in a general election. And Rand Paul is just way too far out there to get enough votes because he's just so far from the mainstream. Democrats would love if they ran Rand Paul. But let's talk about the other two possibilities. So you have Marco Rubio, and you have, Chris Christie, who, let's face it, his political career is over. The scandal in New Jersey is rocking his world. A lot of people thought he might actually be able to dig himself out of that, but recently David Wildstein started to sing, and he's saying that he has evidence, he has witnesses. If they give him immunity, will probably lead to the end of Chris Christie's political career. And possibilities also include impeachment or immediate resignation. And as we all know, that's the end of someone's political career. So I'm not even considering Chris Christie anymore. Basically, he was the Republican Party's only chance against Hillary Clinton. But unfortunately, that's no longer the case. He's not going to be running. So let's talk about Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is Latino. He does have some mainstream appeal, but at the end of the day, he has some libertarianism leanings, and I think the Republican Party really puts too much stock in the effect that running a minority would have on how many votes they could get. I mean, if they actually think that running a Latino is going to guarantee them Latino votes, when the entire National Party's platform is still to have them self-deport, and when they haven't managed to pass immigration reform through the House, if they actually think that, given all that, just running a Latino candidate is going to get them Latino votes, I think they're sadly mistaken. And I also believe that this sort of thing just basically insults the intelligence of Latinos, and most of them can see right through that, and their intelligence would feel insulted, and they would probably come out in even greater numbers for the Democratic challenger or candidate. So that's why Marco Rubio can't win a general election. The only way he'd have a chance is if the Republican Party the Republicans in the House actually did manage to pass comprehensive immigration reform that has a provision in it that literally gives legalization to the illegal immigrants that are here in this country. If they don't manage to pass something like that, Marco Rubio has no chance. We're just going down the list. There's a lot of candidates that could run. You never know who might get into the race, but we're just focusing on the main suspects, the usual suspects, because we don't want to just sit here and name like 100 people. But out of those candidates that have gone through so far, there's just no chance. I'm a liberal, but I'm just trying to do everything I can to literally just try to give the Republicans some hope. If I can think of one person they could run, especially against Hillary Clinton, that would have a chance to win the election, I would tell you right now, but I really can't. Paul Ryan, he's another possibility, but let's face it, people who run for vice president and don't get elected usually don't end up going very far after that. They managed to hold on to their job that they had when they ran, especially when you're Paul Ryan and you're a congressman and your job is dependent on votes from a gerrymandered district that is never going to vote Democrat. You're probably going to hold on to your seat in Congress. But winning a presidential election after having been a part of a failed general election campaign already is probably not even in the realm of reality at this point. So let's cross him off the list. If any of you guys can think of anybody other than those three that might have a chance, let me know, and I'll look into that, and maybe I'll do a video on that. But as it stands right now, I can't think of one person. So that's about it. This video is just supposed to be about, what are the reasons that the Republican Party can't seem to win general elections. And I hope I've laid some of those things out for you guys pretty clearly. Republicans are going to continue to win seats in the House. They're going to hold on to seats in the House. They're going to hold on to some seats in the Senate. It's not likely that in the midterms the Democrats are going to take back the House, although anything's possible. But that's pretty much all the Republicans can hope for at this point, is to continue to cling on to those districts that are already heavily gerrymandered, that always go Republican, and try to continue to hold on to that regional appeal that they have. But they have to realize that it's only going to take them so far, and the out of control obstructionism in the House of Representatives literally could hand the House over to the Democrats if it continues. So, if the Republicans know what's good for them, there won't be any more government shutdowns. There won't be any more fights over the debt ceiling. There won't be any more fights over, these sorts of things that have always been routine in the past, because it really sours off the general public against, sours on the Republican Party. And this is all about general appeal. So that's pretty much all I have to say. These are my pointers for the Republican Party to win a general election, is basically pass immigration reform and run Marco Rubio. That's your only chance. Rand Paul's not going to win no matter what. Don't ever nominate him unless you really want to lose. And Paul Ryan is not going to win. We've already been over why that is. So, run Marco Rubio. But don't run Marco Rubio without immigration reform and without a real effort to reach out to the Latino community. Stop letting Republicans talk about women. Because every time a Republican opens their big fat mouth on national television about women, they always seem to put their own foot in their ass. So try to keep Republicans off of the subject of women, because it just doesn't do them any favors. Mike Libido Huckabee, his recent comments, legitimate rape from the last election, it really makes Republicans look like pigs. And they need to stop. So, no more Republican males talking about women. If you don't want to change your platform on abortion and birth control, the least you can do is just keep all your guys keep their mouths shut about it, because it doesn't do you any favors. The gay marriage thing. Hey, just keep saying it's a state's issue. Stop trying to push for federal amendments to the Constitution. I mean, these aren't going to do you any favors. Leave it to the states. You Republicans love to leave things to the states and always say the states should decide. The states should decide. So if you want to do yourself a favor, make sure on gay marriage you just push that. You push that idea that this is up to the states. That's the best thing you can do, short of supporting gay marriage in a national platform. Taxes. When when you're running your primary, you're running your general election, keep in mind that the next election, in the midterms and then in the general election, Democrats are going to use minimum wage to pound the Republicans. And if you know anything about politics and if you follow elections, you should know that the minimum wage has literally defeated Republicans so many times in general elections, and in local congressional elections. Look at the last congressional election, or look at the congressional election in 2010. The Republicans won everything in 2010. They swept. It was great. It was a great election for the Republicans. But look at where the Republicans lost. In almost every congressional and Senate election that they ran, the ones that they lost they all had something in common. Okay, and that is the minimum wage. Every single one of the seats that they lost in that election, and let's face it, there weren't many of them because, like I said, they did great. The seats that they did lose were in elections where the Democratic challenger or incumbent, you know, made an argument for increasing the minimum wage. And just the fact that in most states the margins are like 70% or over in favor of increasing the minimum wage, just that simple fact helps people win elections against Republicans. Look at what happened in Virginia. If you don't really understand why in Virginia, which is a really conservative state, why it is that Democrats swept that state, probably are going to have control of the legislature when they decide after this recount who the vice president or the lieutenant governor is going to be. When they have that recount and that's decided, if it's a Democrat, they'll have a control over the legislature. You have a Democratic governor in Virginia. You have Democrats all over Virginia now that are in office, and you know why that is? Is because Terry McAuliffe, who won that election, had raising the minimum wage as one of his main campaign points. That's what won him the election. So keep that in mind. That's all I have to say. Sorry about being a little long-winded, and I'm sure I'll get some comments from Todd and other people, and I look forward to responding. Thanks for your time.